What would you do if in your search for more of these stories, more of these spooky or scary or haunting stories, you ended up becoming part of one yourself? What would you do if in your search to have the next thrill, you became the thrill that someone else could read later? Today's story was posted on the r/nosleep subreddit by Dark Lights, and it's entitled, My Reddit Story is Starting to Come True. If you stick around to the end, we'll find out just how our protagonist may or may not escape from this. Hello, I'm Cece, with the Crucible of Character. I like to read stories, haunting ones, scary ones, thrilling ones from Reddit and other places, and post them and try and help us to each become better people from learning from the protagonist. If you enjoyed today's video and you'd like to see more content, make sure to hit that subscribe and like. It really helps me out, and I appreciate it. But anyways, into the story. I'm a regular Reddit user. I like posting stories here. Even though my stories don't get much attention, I don't write them for fame or money. Writing just makes me feel better. I have dozens of short stories and a few unfinished books. This isn't even my real job. I work at a gas station, but I've always been interested in writing since I was a kid. Usually I post 3 or 4 stories every week in different communities. At best, they get a few thousand views. But I'm not writing this as fiction. For the past few weeks, strange things have been happening, and if I've pieced everything together correctly, a serial killer's after me. And in a few days, I'm gonna die. I don't know what triggered the beginning of all this. My shift ended at midnight. It was a normal Friday night. After work, I went home. Before bed, I opened my laptop. I had this crime novel idea in my head for days, and I wanted to start writing it. I wrote until around 3 a.m. I was half asleep when I typed the last sentence, and at last, the sound of the killer's footsteps echoed in the empty street. I was proud of the first chapter. I shut down my laptop and went to the kitchen for some water. While drinking, I saw 2 shadows outside the window. At first, I thought it was just a tree swaying in the wind. Then, I heard a woman scream. I froze. The screen was completely empty. The scream cut off suddenly. Now, there were 2 shadows on the building. One was lying on the ground. The other was moving. Then it quickly slid out of sight over the roof. I went outside to check, still in my slippers and pajamas. The street was silent, but when I reached the neighbor building, I couldn't believe what I saw. A woman was slumped against the wall, covered in blood. I recognized her. She was the kind lady who brought me pie when I first moved in. I called 911 and tried to stop the bleeding, but when I checked her pulse, it was gone. She was already dead. The paramedics confirmed it when they arrived. The police asked me a bunch of questions. Did I see the killer? Where was I? Did I notice anything unusual? They took my statement at the station. I got home around 5 a.m., collapsed onto my bed, and thought, this was the worst night of my life since prom. If only it had stayed that way. The next day, I was a mess. I couldn't focus at work. My boss let me leave early. When I came home, the police had blocked off my street with yellow tape and squad cars. The noise was unbearable, so I turned back to my story. Writing always calmed me down. I finished the second chapter I had planned in my head. After writing the last sentence, I heard a siren from next door. His final words sent a shiver through him. Later, I went for a walk in the park to clear my head. I sat on a bench, watching kids play, when an old man with a cane sat next to me. He asked, "Did you hear about that murder?" "I didn't just hear about it," I said. "I saw it from my window." His eyebrows shot up. "Really?" "Yeah," he sighed. "You can't trust people anymore. You never know who's good or evil." I nodded. I was suddenly uncomfortable. I stood up to leave. The man called after me. "Good day, son, and don't forget to watch your back." I told myself it was nothing, just a random warning, but his words kept echoing in my head all the way home. That night, I sat back down at my laptop. I wrote furiously. Hours later, I typed the ending of chapter 3. He barely dodged in time. Looking up, he saw that same face staring down at him. The next day at work, things got worse. A black SUV pulled in. The driver got a receipt for gas. Then, a woman walked in. She looked strange. Her eyes were wide open, unblinking. I ignored her. When the man who just got the receipt mentioned a problem with the pump, I went outside. It was acting up occasionally. I helped him. When I came back, she was standing right at the automatic doors. I almost crashed into her. Startled, I stumbled backwards, right into the path of the SUV that was pulling out. I barely avoided getting run over. The woman didn't even flinch. She just stared at me. For some reason, this woman had really gotten on my nerves. "What are you doing?" She didn't answer. Then she turned and walked away. My shift was over, so I left. When I got home, the police teams and crime scenes were gone. I desperately needed a distraction. I found myself at the computer again. This time I really felt the urge to write. After 4 hours of uninterrupted writing, I typed the final sentence of the chapter. And finally, he heard the sounds he feared. Knock, knock, knock. As I always do, I made my coffee and started reading the story I had written from beginning to end. The reason I do this is that I write in parts, so I don't always capture the flow of the story perfectly. While reading, the story took on a whole new dimension in my mind. I read the first part in detail. While correcting typos, something in the line caught my attention. He ran towards the direction of the scream. He knew he was too late. She was already gone. He collapsed beside the woman's lifeless body, and at last, the sound of the killer's footsteps echoed in the empty street. A theory began to form in my head. I continued reading, unconcerned. It was just a coincidence. Every time he tapped his cane on the ground while talking, he flinched, finally unable to stand the strange old man any longer. He got up. As he turned around, the old man called out to him, "Don't forget to check your back." He didn't reply. The man's last words has caused him to tremble. I started reading the next line. Again, when I reached the last paragraph, I noticed the same thing. He raised his head. He was startled by the bulging eyes that had suddenly appeared before him. His feet moved back, as if wanting to flee. At this moment, he hadn't noticed the SUV spinning and screaming down the road. He barely dodged in time. Looking up, he saw that same face staring down at him. I sat up straight in my seat. I was in indescribable fear. My eyes welled up as I read the last line. He understood now. All the pieces had fallen into place. Even the chair he was sitting on suddenly felt uncomfortable. He couldn't stay in place any longer and jumped up. He paced around frantically, his ears focused on a single sound. He sat on the couch to calm himself. He wanted to believe it was all his imagination. To lessen his fear even a little, he buried his face in the pillow. He waited in horror for the slow sound of the door, and finally, he heard the sound he feared. Knock, knock, knock. This couldn't be. It was impossible. I don't know how I didn't realize this while I was writing, because I never considered the possibility of something like this happening. I thought I was inspired by my experiences when writing. It was the exact opposite. I was living what I was writing. I started pacing the room. I thought about calling the police. There was no crime committed yet, and as I wrote, I hadn't even heard the sound of the door yet. I thought I was mixing up the timelines in my head. Maybe I had lived it first and then written it, remembering it differently in my head. In fact, I believed this possibility quite strongly. I calmed myself down a bit. As I said, reading too many horror stories made me confuse the real world with fiction. I sat on my couch and sighed. It was all my fabrication, all of it. And then I heard it. 3 knocks on my door. I froze, looked through the peephole. No one was there. Maybe I imagined it. Maybe I misheard it. But then, louder this time, 3 more knocks. And 30 seconds later, again. I don't know what to do. I thought about deleting the story. I even rewrote the ending so the killer just vanished, but the knocking hasn't stopped. Maybe this is my last note before I die. I'm going to try to escape. If I don't post again in the next few days, well, I guess my story didn't get the happy ending. The end. I like that story. It was good. I kind of like how it's a little bit meta in the way that it plays on itself and it kind of understands maybe some tropes and works with them. It's interesting. I think it's so cool how it kind of, a lot of these stories in Reddit that I've found so far kind of relate back to a desire to dive into the rabbit hole, but making sure to keep that desire in check in a way. There seems to be a similarity between a lot of the protagonists, and that is that their curiosity for the unknown or their desire to learn more about this kind of dark fascination that they have tends to overpower their desire to live in a way. And I think that that's really powerful. Again, I think I said just a few videos ago, you'll end up getting what you want. And so if what you want is the truth in these things, if what you want is to reach truly the bottom of the rabbit hole, you also have to understand and be willing to accept whatever fate that brings. And so I think that the counsel that I give for this is truly just be wary of the direction you're headed in, because sometimes, well, most of the time, you end up in a place that you cannot go back from. And so you have to understand that you might be on autopilot, but that doesn't mean that you can take it back. Now, for differences in the story, one, there's a kind of a common thing if you watch movies and TV where somebody's taken a hostage. If at any point the guy with the gun takes his mask off, then you know all the hostages are probably dead, right? Because if they see the face, then you can't have any witnesses, right? So, at least in my mind, if I see out my window and I see there's some shadows and I'm thinking, oh, you know what, maybe that's something scary going on, I'm probably going to get to a position where I can watch kind of strategically, but not so much so that they notice that I'm watching. Or I might even just leave the room. That's a smart idea too. Because if there's someone who is so bold as to literally murder someone in a backyard, in the middle of a neighborhood, there's literally nothing different about that scenario and them just hopping the fence and stabbing you as well, or doing whatever to you as well. So I guess my change that I would do is be smart. Again, curiosity killed the cat in both scenarios. So be careful at what you're doing and what you want to do and what you want to be a part of. I think that's a double play on the same kind of lesson to be learned there. But anyways, if y'all have any other suggestions or comments or things that you would have done differently, please let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed today's video, please make sure to hit that like and subscribe for more daily content like this. I appreciate you all. I love you all. And I'll talk to you later.